the youngest world champion of public speaking, and we have something in common. We love to open doors for people. A few years ago, when he won the world champion of public speaking, he was being interviewed. Everyone had left the auditorium. He was alone. He was just a few people in this empty auditorium. And he said he wanted to go out. Open a door. They said, no, you can't do that. You need some bodyguards. It's too dangerous. He opened the door. And there was a big explosion of people, flashing cameras, fans flashing smiles. Oh, Mr. Avery, can we get your autograph? Mr. Avery, can you take a picture with my mom? That was the door he opened. That was the door when I was about the same age as him, I also opened the door. Yeah. I opened the door to a taxi. But what you don't know is I was the driver in the taxi. I was the driver. And that night, 30 years ago, instead of flashing cameras and flashing smiles, there was the flash of a shining knife blade. Have you ever asked yourself, how did I get into that situation in the first place? That was what I was thinking. 30 years ago, I opened a door to a knife attack. And it was no accident. A few years ago, the world champion of public speaking, he opened the door, and it was no accident that he was the winner. And it was no accident that I opened a much different door. 30 years later, just very recently, I finally discovered how come I opened a much different door than him. And the answer may be the lesson for us all. The answer is in the question that he asked and I asked. It was the question that led him to win and me to almost lose. On that night 30 years ago, I was driving. It was a rainy, dark night, slippery. The only things that were flashing that night were the warning lights reflected in the wet road. And you could see cars swerving because the road's so slippery. And the wind blowing, the trees blowing. And there was me and the passenger. Well, I opened the door to let him in. I picked him up at a bar. He walked with a cane. I could smell the breath, on his breath, alcohol. But he seemed safe. He had a cane. What could he do? He gave me where to take him. Yes. And then, a few minutes later, this happened. He opened the knife, and he put it where I could see it. But I've got to worry about where I'm going. And the road is slippery, and it's rainy. And then he put a knife. But then he did it again. And he went back. But then he did it one more time for me to see. And at that moment, I saw a park. And then he came at me. I was able to get away. I was able to open my door and ask a question. Can someone help me? He opened a door that was very close, about this far away from my door. And he asked a very different question. He asked, He must have asked the question, where can I hide with this cane? There were some bushes. There he was. Two doors and a question were a world of difference apart. Two doors so close. What separated us was a question. Where can he hide? Or he asked, where can I hide? I asked, can somebody help me? You see, the question led to much different result. He was arrested. I'm free to go. 30 years later, I wondered, how did I get in that taxi in the first place? Also, two doors and a question. You see, the world champion of public speaking, he asked a much different question than I did when he was his age. He was so excited about this inspirational speech contest. It was very hard. Thousands and thousands of people competing. No problem. He said, I can do it. Well, how to win? He asked the question, how to win? He was not rich. Maybe he and I were about the same in terms of money. But he asked a much different question. How can I win? And you know, my question at that time, because I was also worried about money, was how can I pay the rent? And so I got my answer was, oh, drive a cab, then you can pay the rent. You see, he asked a much different question. Money was still an issue for him. His wife was unemployed. He was working at a nonprofit, not making much money. His question still was a much bigger question. How can I win the world champion of public speaking? Two different questions got two different answers. He was able to answer his question in a huge way with huge success. And I answered my question with an answer that just fit the question. You want to pay the rent? Drive the taxi. Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever been in a position where it's not for you? You're in the wrong job, or you've opened the wrong door. And you're so uncomfortable. You may even have asked yourself, how did you get there? The answer may be in the question you asked. You may have asked the wrong question, and the wrong question will lead to the wrong answer. You may have asked, I just want a comfortable job. How about if you asked, how can I win in your life goal, whatever that is? Two doors and a question. What question you ask may lead to a much different door than you are now, or that you could be. The right question may lead to you living a dream that's fantastic. And just one other question may lead to something that's less interesting. Consider, when you have to make a decision, this door or that door, what question do you want to answer? The answer may take you to the dream of your life. Let's hope for that.
Thank you.